Good evening and welcome to NTD UK News. I'm Stuart Lees. Here's tonight's top story. More migrants crossed the English Channel in small boats today after the deadliest day when 27 people lost their lives.
I've offered to work with France to put more officers on the ground and do absolutely whatever is necessary to secure the area.
Also tonight, the House of Lords debates accusations of genocide in Xinjiang, China.
We must not stand idly by as we watch a genocide take place under the guise of re-education.
And the Defence Secretary announces a radical restructure of the British military to take place under its new plan, Future Soldier. More migrants arrived in the UK by crossing the English Channel in small boats, one day after 27 people lost their lives in the waterway. The Prime Minister said he was shocked and appalled by the tragedy. Home Secretary Priti Patel said Britain will do whatever necessary to help secure the French coast. The French President said he's in support of stronger European cooperation, but the migrants who cross don't want to stay in France. NTD's Joanne Robson has this report.
More people made the perilous journey across the Channel on Thursday. They were rescued by an RNLI lifeboat before disembarking in Dover in the morning. That's one day after a dinghy capsized and 27 migrants died, the worst accident of its kind in the Channel on record. The Home Secretary told MPs on Thursday the government will do whatever is necessary to help secure the French coast.
I have literally, Madam Deputy Speaker, just spoken again with my French counterpart, Minister Darmanin, and I've once again reached out and made my offer very clear to France in terms of joint France and UK cooperation, joint patrols to prevent these dangerous journeys from taking place.
She said there's no quick fix.
This is about addressing long-term pull factors, smashing the criminal gangs that treat human beings as cargo, and tackling supply chains. This requires a coordinated international effort.
French authorities said the dead include 17 men, 7 women, 2 boys and a girl. The Prime Minister said on Wednesday night he was shocked and appalled and deeply saddened by the tragedy.
But I also want to say that this disaster underscores how dangerous it is to cross the Channel in this way. And it also shows how vital it is that we now step up our efforts to break the business model of the gangsters.
He said the UK will better cooperate with France and other EU member states.
Our offer is to increase our support, but also to work together with our partners on the beaches concerned, on the landing, the launching grounds for these boats, and that's something I hope that will be acceptable now in view of what has happened.
Footage shot in the early morning of Wednesday shows that when the group of migrants started their fatal journey, a French police car was nearby on the beach.
I'll say very clearly that our police are mobilized day and night, not only yesterday or the day before, but from the start. They are on our external borders. Never has France had as many police officers and at times soldiers involved in the fight against illegal immigration at the Spanish, Italian and Belgian borders.
The French president said he's in support of stronger European cooperation, but the migrants who cross don't want to stay in France.
I would like to remind you that we are holding the border for the British in a way, and that all these women and men do not want asylum in France. We offer it to them, and all those who want it are processed in centres set up around Calais and Dunkirk.
The former Director General of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith, said the UK Border Force's mission is to save lives, and UK authorities treat migrants well.
That's not the case on the French side, as we have seen. The French are not patrolling their territorial waters. They are allowing unseaworthy vessels onto the dangerous channel. People don't have life-saving equipment on there. They're flimsy vessels, no real effective life jackets. And
Smith says joint patrols and integrated enforcement teams could work to stop boats in the water, on beaches, or even stop them from getting across in the first place.
There is precedent in international law to set up joint patrols. So we could have French officers on our vessels or British officers on their vessels or even joint vessels.
Many migrants crossing the Channel from France end up in Dover, on England's south-eastern coast. Local MP Nathalie Elfique said she's disappointed with the French police.
And they went off to shore in France and nothing was done, and there was a child on board in that particular crossing. It's absolutely vital that the French police stop the boats leaving in the first place. That's the best way to keep people safe. Britain has offered to help with people and resources, and I hope the French will now take up that offer and other European countries will come to France's aid.
French authorities say they have arrested 5 suspected smugglers. 2 survivors are treated for severe hypothermia in a French hospital. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
There were powerful speeches in the House of Lords today as peers debated accusations of genocide in Xinjiang, China. Lawmakers are raising concerns about the Chinese Communist Party's human rights atrocities in China, including evidence of forced organ harvesting. We've got more from NTD's Jane Worrell.
Moving speeches in the House of Lords with peers debating accusations of genocide in China's Xinjiang region.
The published research suggests that since 2016, at least 1 million people have been detained in Xinjiang without trial. The purpose is to re-educate them and to replace their Muslim faith and culture with adherence to the ideology of the Chinese Communist Party.
Pointed words saying the UK must act.
We must not stand idly by as we watch a genocide take place under the guise of re-education.
The peers debated accusations of torture, forced labour and forced sterilisation of the Uyghur and other ethnic groups, as well as of forced organ harvesting, a crime that's also been inflicted on the persecuted Falun Gong spiritual group.
We want to try and find our moral compass again. We want to try and point the way to how one should deal with nations that are perpetrating great evil.
On my way here, I went past a small group of demonstrators who've been on Portland Place for years, drawing attention to the thousands who've disappeared in China. They are Falun Gong practitioners, but their fate is the same as the Uyghurs. Their fate is being killed for their organs to supply a despicable trade in transplant tourism for profit. There are estimates that 1.5 million have been murdered for their organs.
In the debate that lasted more than 2.5 hours, questions were also raised about supply chains.
My lords, I see many of you are wearing masks as required. Please look where your masks were made, and can we consider whether we believe that any of the supply chain could have included slave labour? Are we perhaps all complicit?
The Human Rights Minister saying he will work with international partners and Uyghur people to hold the Chinese regime to account. Lawyer Michael Polak says the UK government could take a lead on the question of genocide in Xinjiang.
One thing the UK government could do is it could lead members of the General Assembly of the United Nations in asking the International Court of Justice for an advisory opinion in regards to whether genocide and crimes against humanity are taking place. It takes a country with a bit of courage and a bit of strength to stand up and be the one to kind of lead that movement. So we would call on the UK government to be that country, to lead for once on this issue.
There was a sense in the House of Lords, particularly in Lord Alton's closing speech, that they wanted to speak and act for those who don't have fundamental freedoms.
Indeed, Bonhoeffer said, not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. And I think all of us have to bear the privileges that we enjoy in your Lordship's House in mind, the truth-telling that my noble friend Lord Hastings enjoined upon us, that we have a duty to use those privileges, these liberties, these freedoms, whenever we have the chance to do that.
Jane Worrell, NTD News, London.
The Defence Secretary announced a radical change to the British military with its future soldier plan. Aims include becoming globally engaged and investing in state-of-the-art equipment, as well as becoming a key contributor to NATO. NTD's Malcolm Hudson has more details.
Defence Secretary Ben Wallace announced the government's future soldier plan to restructure the British Army. While investing in state-of-the-art equipment and developing a base in Oman, the military will take down troop numbers to 73,000.
Far from being deprived of investment, as some claim, we are injecting £41.3 billion into army equipment and support this decade, £8.6 billion more than had been planned prior to the integrated review. We are using those funds to create a modern, innovative and digitised army. Our future army will be leaner but more productive, prioritising speed and readiness over mass and mobilisation.
Previously, there was a target strength of 82,000 soldier posts, though the actual number of troops is around 76,000. The shrinkage down to 73,000 will be achieved with structural changes and not by redundancy. Wallace said the British military has to adapt to the threats of the future, such as humanitarian crises, more capable violent extremism, and world power competition. Plans include leaving bases in Canada and downsizing across the UK, as well as moving troops and equipment to countries such as Oman and Kenya.
The aims of this is that readiness and presence deters our adversaries. Sitting in Tidworth on a day's, month's notice to deploy does not actually put off an adversary such as Russia, who constantly exercise and constantly change the readiness profile of their forces so that they keep all of us guessing.
The Defence Secretary noted Russia's recent military exercises and the build-up of forces on the border of Ukraine, saying that it is right that NATO countries are deeply concerned. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
Now the shopping areas in the West End of London are lit up with Christmas lights. Many people are braving the cold to see the displays. Businesses hope the spectacle will encourage more people to the capital's shopping districts to make up for the shortfall of international visitors. NTD's Joy Felix has the story. A warning that the following footage contains flashing lights.
For the first time, London has switched on the Christmas lights of 20 streets at the same time. The lights are supported by the Heart of London Business Alliance, or HOLBA, a local business association.
Christmas lights are a really important part of the West End for Christmas. Everybody looks forward to seeing them. It's that moment when Christmas begins in the West End, so it's something for everybody to get behind.
On Oxford Street, falling shooting stars light up the pavements in cross patterns. In Covent Garden, a 55-foot-tall Christmas tree greets visitors, accompanied by its 30,000 lights. With the temperature slowly dipping as the country heads into winter, it's a good excuse for people to venture out.
After work, just walking down Piccadilly or Oxford, you just see the lighting. After a pretty exhausting day, it puts you in a good mood and just walking around instead of going home. So it's a nice thing to do.
The end of daylight saving time can dampen moods with the sun setting shortly after 4 p.m. For some, seeing the Christmas lights for the first time kick-starts the winter season.
I think all the lights give me proper Christmas vibe and spirit, Christmas spirit. Yeah, it makes you feel a bit more festive, especially after this past year. It's nice to just see everything get back together.
In Carnaby Street, more than 600 sparkling 3D and 2D butterflies hang in the air. The art installation called Carnaby Christmas Kaleidoscope was handmade and set up in collaboration with Choose Love, an NGO supporting refugees.
This Christmas is really important because we're trying to make up that shortfall in international travel.
HOLBA estimates that London West End will generate £1.2 billion in revenue over the winter period. The area seems to be on a good track. During the second weekend in November, foot traffic was up by 8% compared to the same weekend in 2019, prior to the pandemic. Joy Felix, NTD News.
Still to come, people smugglers show little regard for human life. We hear from an Iraqi who says he makes £75,000 a year off of migrants desperate to reach Europe. That and more after the break. People smugglers are profiting off the desperation of migrants hoping to reach Europe, while also showing little regard for their lives. We hear from a smuggler in Iraq who says he makes £75,000 a year. An Iraqi family that crossed into Poland from Belarus and were sent back home say they would do it again. We've got more from NTD's Eddie Aiken.
A people smuggler in the northern Iraq province of Erbil spoke to Sky. He said business was not stopping, with trafficking routes heading north to Belarus, or west across the sea to Greece and Italy, and further to the UK.
We collect and transfer people to the UK via Dunkirk, where we put them on boats. Normally, these boats hold 5 people, but we strengthen them with metal rods and a motor so we can send more than 15 to 20 people on them.
The man said he's making £75,000 a year, acting as part of an illegal network. The Mahmoud family, now back in Erbil, said they paid over £22,000 to smugglers to help them get to Europe.
When we went to Belarus, we didn't even know how to get enough money to eat. The smuggler said, "I don't have money for you." I told him we wanted to go home, but he said, "You can't go back. I spent money on you. You have to deal with it." He treated us like animals.
The family managed to cross into Poland from Belarus. They said Belarusian border forces helped them get across.
The Belarusian police?
Yeah, yes, border police border guards.
They cut the fence?
Yes. She's crying every day and every time.
But Polish authorities eventually caught them and sent them back. They say they are willing to risk the journey again.
We have money, yeah, we back again. On summer. Yeah, on the summer. Yeah. Because we don't have life in here, and we don't have future, and we don't have money. We lost everything.
You okay?
The medical director of a Polish hospital near the Belarus border is seeing first-hand migrants from Iraq coming into his hospital every day in serious condition. They suffer from hypothermia, pneumonia, broken bones and severe dehydration. He's of Kurdish origin, so he asked a Kurdish TV channel in Iraq to let him go on the news to warn people back in his homeland.
We must teach young people that the illegal way is not a good way. If you have an education, look for a job, do it legally. I'm the medical director of this hospital. If 20 doctors wanted to work here, I could give them work tomorrow, but they must fulfill certain requirements. Coming here by risking the death of your family and children is not a good way.
Praktycznie zaliczyć śmierć swoje bliskich dzieci to nie jest dobra droga.
Many migrants, after arriving at the Belarus-Poland border, are left stuck in the damp forest, and the weather is getting colder. At least 13 have died in the area in recent weeks. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Belarus's opposition leader is appealing to Europe to ensure that economic sanctions on the regime remain strong. Her visit to the European Parliament came as the bloc prepares new sanctions to prevent a security crisis at its borders blamed on the regime. This report comes from NTD's Joy Felix.
Exiled Belarus opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is calling for media outlets to stop recognizing her country's contested leader. Speaking at the European Parliament in Strasbourg on Wednesday.
Such influential European media, from Deutsche Welle to BBC, call Alexander Lukashenko president. He is not. He is a citizen of Belarus who has illegally usurped presidential power by violence.
She also called on Europe to ensure the economic sanctions on the regime remain strong.
Will Europe as a whole have the courage to take decisive action now? Or will we wait another year? Dear ladies and gentlemen, We don't have another year. Neither does Belarus, neither does Europe.
Her remarks came as the EU prepares to approve a new raft of sanctions against Belarus. The package of travel bans and asset freezes targets Lukashenko, his associates and other Belarusian officials. The measures will also hit air carriers and travel groups. On Tuesday, the EU presented a blacklist for transport operators. The move would limit their ability to operate in the European market. These measures target companies accused of helping migrants to enter the bloc without authorization. Joy Felix, NTD News.
Now to Serbia. Thousands rallied in central Belgrade on Wednesday against the government's policies on foreign investments. Protesters say proposed laws favour the interests of foreign investors over those of Serbia's citizens and are bad for the environment. NTD's David English brings us more on this.
More than 2,000 people gathered outside the Serbian presidency building on Wednesday. Protesters blew whistles and blocked traffic before marching through the city centre. They pledged to block roads nationwide if authorities approve a law allowing government confiscation of private property. Organisers say the law will allow the state to take property from citizens in the interests of foreign companies such as Rio Tinto.
The government of the Republic of Serbia made private deals with this company. This is the message to them from Serbian citizens that Serbia is not for sale.
Rio Tinto has previously faced protests over its bid to open a lithium mine in western Serbia. Ecology groups have warned that the planned mine would devastate the environment in the region.
We want to breathe freely, we care about our health, about our nature, and we will never let this happen.
The Serbian government has denied that the draft laws were designed to enable Rio Tinto to take control of the land needed for the mine. The president said the law was needed for infrastructure projects such as roads and railways. David English, NTD News.
Sweden's first female Prime Minister, Social Democrat Magdalena Andersson, resigned on Wednesday after less than 12 hours in the top job. It was a result of the Green Party quitting their two-party coalition. The country now needs to find a new government.
The newly elected Prime Minister of Sweden resigned on Wednesday, less than 12 hours after taking office. Magdalena Andersson, the country's first female leader, led a government ruled by a two-party minority coalition. But an early fracture in that alliance caused her to step down.
This morning I was elected Prime Minister by Parliament to form a coalition government for the Social Democrats and the Green Party. The Green Party has now announced that they no longer want to be part of the government.
Sweden's Green Party quit after Parliament rejected the coalition's finance bill, instead passing another drawn up by three opposition parties. That left Andersson no option other than to resign. The Green Party said, however, that it would support her in any future confirmation vote in Parliament. Meanwhile, opposition parties have not been able to command a majority. Andersson took over as Prime Minister from Stefan Löfven, as well as leader of the Social Democrats Party. The Speaker of Parliament will decide the next step in the process of finding a new government, but will most likely put Andersson forward for a new vote in the coming days.
And finally, one of Russia's most notable human rights groups may be facing closure. The group Memorial has spent decades documenting Stalin's repressions and helping people dig up information on the Soviet dictator's victims. But the group's main offices now face the threat of being shut down at the behest of state prosecutors, who accuse it of flouting Russia's foreign agent laws. NTD's Joanne Robson brings us this report.
The Russian human rights organization Memorial has come under scrutiny for what state prosecutors describe as flouting Russia's foreign agent laws. This means the group is at risk of closure. Founded in the late 1980s during the Soviet twilight, Memorial has spent decades documenting Stalin's repressions and helping people unearth information on victims. Among them is Alexander Korobuchkin, whose grandfather was arrested and shot in 1938 during Stalin's Great Terror.
I only heard about my grandfather from relatives who were very young at the time. 12 to 15 years old, but I never saw him.
15 лет им было.
Millions of Soviet citizens were executed by secret police or sent to labor camps during Stalin's rule.
Столько человеческих судеб было разрушено.
So many human lives were ruined. If this organisation is closed and no one remembers this, how will the next generation be able to live without this memory?
То как же новое поколение без этой памяти будет жить?
Memorial, which is still exposing human rights abuses and speaking out for current political prisoners, says the move is politically motivated. It was designated a foreign agent in 2016. A court began hearing the motion to close it on Thursday. Philip Minlow said Memorial has helped him learn more about his grandfather, who was imprisoned early in World War II and later died in jail.
Такие истории, такие прекрасная история, как моя, когда кто-то...
Such incredible stories like mine, in which Memorial has helped find out information about a grandfather or great-grandfather, might now become impossible. And another thing, it sends a signal that the modern social system is unsuitable for Memorial.
Несовместимости, что ли, да, современного общественного устройства с мемориалом.
The head of Memorial's archive believes it's possible the legal action against the group was retribution for its uncompromising efforts to expose Stalin's crimes and Soviet repressions. The move comes amid a clampdown on Russian media and civil society groups, some of which have been labelled foreign agents or banned. Authorities deny a crackdown and say its laws on foreign agents are needed to protect Russia against foreign meddling. Joanne Robson, NTD News.
That's the news for today. Have a good evening.